Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to 5 on Friday, where I share my 5 favourite books of the week. And as usual, I've got an eclectic collection this afternoon, from some picture books to some poetry anthologies. This week I'm going to remember to turn my phone onto silent. It rang a few times last week. Sorry about that. But yeah, I'm going to share with you my 5 favourite books of the week. I have to show you my earrings. I love a good statement earring. These ones have got pink and green cheetahs on them. I love them. And I've got quite a lot of pink happening. My hair is pink, although it's faded even since last week. It's still quite pink on this side. But yeah, my hair's pink. My jumper's pink today. What can I say? I really like pink. I have totally embraced the pink in life, it would be fair to say. Someone asked me on my socials the other day why my hair was pink. And I don't know. I was really conservative as a teenager. I never did anything outlandish. I once told some grade 6 girls that if they read a certain number of books, they could choose my hair color, and they chose purple, and my hair was purple for a while. And then it was, what have I been? I've been turquoise, I've been purple, I've been blue. I've been all sorts of different colors. I went like a funny shade of green once, but that was really bad because green in blonde hair fades to like that. Remember in the 80s and 90s when the chlorine used to turn your hair green? Does that still happen? I feel like they must have changed the chlorine because it doesn't feel like that happens anymore. But yeah, it faded to a really disgusting color. And then I just settled on pink, and I like pink hair. So around my 40s, I got my first tattoo and I dyed my hair pink. What can I say? I was a terribly conservative teenager, so I am, doing all of the things now. And I went and got my ear pierced up the top there one afternoon not that long ago. I don't know. I don't even know why I did it. I was walking past after buying groceries. It's like, I feel like my ear re-pierced. I had re-pierced it myself with one of my husband's piercing, with his old eyebrow ring, which was really sad. I had re-pierced it myself. It got a bit gunky, so then I had to go and deal with it properly. But yeah, anyway, I think I'll talk about books. I think that's much safer territory to talk about is books. So my 5 favorite books this week are, in no particular order, although I will start from early childhood and go upwards. Can someone post a comment and see, so I can see that you can actually hear me? And just if you are using StreamYard for the first time, this is a streaming software that I'm using. So if you want me to see your name and know who you are, you just have to accept that you don't mind StreamYard showing your name. I will just wait and see if anybody posts a comment. Oh, thanks, Melissa. And can you hear me? I've got a microphone this week as well. I've gone totes fancy. Oh, thanks, Gabrielle. That's great. Hi, Megan Elizabeth Green. Oh, that's great. So you can hear me. I don't know if, oh, hi, Hassan Rashbi. Pink, yes. I really have embraced the pink. I probably need to move on to a different color. Anyway, so Shapes and Colors. Speaking of colors, this is by John Canty. It comes out, I think, next week. Now, John Canty is the author of that fabulous picture book series, Heads and Tails, which I just adore. Absolutely love them. I do not know who John Canty is. I've never met him. I've actually not even Googled him, which I probably should do. I normally know quite a lot about each author and illustrator that I'm talking about. And John Canty remains a mystery to me. So, I would like to meet him one day and just tell him how much I adore his books. So this is, I'm hoping, a new kind of collection that he's doing. So he's done Heads and Tails. This one is obviously about colors. What could he do next? Numbers? I don't know, shapes and colors, numbers and, I don't know, something else. Anyway, it's got fabulous end papers, as you would expect. He does great end papers. At the end, there's a rainbow, and I love that. I absolutely love it when they change up the end papers and the end papers mean something. So what's red, what's orange, what's yellow, what's blue? And we go through the book, and it says, what's red? And, you get your kindy class, as I did, to decide what all of the red things are, name all of the red things, and then see if they are correct. And, most of them are fairly easy to pick, although quite a few kids did not get the traffic cone or the pumpkin on this one. And it just goes through, and it's obviously about identifying colours and shapes. I love, if you look really closely at the illustrations, they are all painted. They are absolutely exquisite. The indigo page has got this fabulous rhinoceros beetle. There's a green page. Where's my rhinoceros beetle? He's on the indigo page. Look at that beetle. It's so beautiful. I do love a beetle. So it's just fantastic. But what I really like, he goes one step further. This is what I think takes this book from just a simple book about colors, which, you know, would be lovely because the illustrations are lovely, but he then goes next level. He then goes, what colors can we find in the city? And we look at the cityscape and we identify all of the colors and the color mixing that occurs. And then what colors can we find in the country? And you can see that both of these are landscape pictures, paintings, but they've both got, the colors are different. In this one, we talked about in Kindy, in this one, how the colors were very up and down and they were blocked as to do with the shape of the buildings. And the landscape one in the country, the images went across this way. The colors went in bands across this way. And then at the end, it talks about all the colors of the world. And we have the rainbow there: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. So I think it just goes that one step further from a simple board book that you might have about colors. And it is John Canty, so you can be assured that the illustrations are exquisite, utterly giftable, utterly gorgeous. Okay, next up, Gus Gordon. Now, Gus Gordon can do absolutely no wrong. I've got two authors today who I don't think I've ever disliked any of their books ever. And Gus Gordon is one of those author illustrators. He is astonishing, and we are so lucky that we have such astonishing talent in Australia, even though he seems to spend an awful lot of time in Europe. Lucky him. But this is Finding Francois. And it's absolutely gorgeous. He always does really nice end papers as well. This one has got all different sorts of bottles. On his, oh gosh, what was the book that he did with the gorgeous peaches on the end papers? It'll come to me. But I do love a Gus Gordon end paper. And here we've got Alice. Now, Alice is a little piglet, and she lives in France in, well, it doesn't actually name it, but one can kind of tell. Alice lives with her guardian, her grandmother, and her grandmother do everything together, and they have a really, really lovely life. They have a very sort of elegant and refined life, I have to say. They spend a lot of time baking cakes, and Alice spends a lot of time writing lists. Alice was a writer of lists. Every morning she wrote a list of the many plans she had for the day. There were pictures to be drawn, creme brulees to be eaten, buttons to organise, and books to read. I want Alice's life. I read this to my kindy class, and my boss, the head of the junior school, was there on that day, and she was like, I love writing lists. I want to be Alice. And look, I feel a bit the same. And then it goes on. Now, you'll notice straight away that the illustrations are exquisite, as we've come to expect from Gus Gordon, no pressure dude. But they're a beautiful combination of drawing, painting, and collage, which he's done for the last few books, and I really, really like. His books sort of all go hand in hand. Like, there's a few illustrators that I collect the books of. I used to, of course, collect the books of my good friend Narelle Oliver. I have every single Gus Gordon book that's ever been written. And Chris McKimmey, I was trying to think of his name. Chris McKimmey is a Brisbane illustrator, and I collect every single one of his picture books as well, because I love the way the illustration styles remain largely the same throughout, and they just make a really beautiful collection. And I don't even really let my children touch them. They're not for my children. They're for me. They're works of art. One day I'm going to own a piece of Gus Gordon artwork. I do have a Gus Gordon dog on my wall, but he did just draw it on the back of an envelope. But still, I'm going to take it. It's an original Gus Gordon. Anyway, so there was days, however, so Alice has a beautiful life, but there are days when she feels like she would love a friend her own size, her own age, or even a sister, or a sister, or even a brother, especially on stormy nights when she was trying hard to be brave, or when her grandmother was elsewhere. And look what Grandma's doing. She's sleeping. She's elsewhere. She's off sleeping. Okay, then we get to a page that says, and then one day Alice's grandmother was gone. And I really like this quite just matter-of-fact description of the fact that Alice's grandmother has passed away, and Alice is clearly going to be unbelievably sad, but it doesn't dwell on that. It just states it. And sometimes I think as adults, we get very worried about reading children picture books where something sad, like the death of a grandparent, happens. But illustrators and authors are incredibly good at putting it in age-appropriate language and being quite matter-of-fact about it. And in fact, children are really, really good at dealing with life events and understanding that life is made up of light and dark in life. So there's this one page where it just talks about Alice's grandmother being gone. And there's a sad page where she's looking out the window and there's a line in French, which I probably should try to translate, but I didn't. And then it says, and then she goes to live with Miss Clement. And after a year, it says, over time, the dark clouds slowly packed up their things and they shuffled into the distance and the sun sprang forth from wherever it was hiding. And that's such a beautiful description of grief for somebody that you love, and that idea that there's always light in the dark and the light will come out again. And it's a very, very beautiful line, and I thank Gus Gordon for it. It's a beautiful description of grief and that ability to still find the light in life. Now, in the meantime, I did miss a small and a very important part, because I was moving on to the grief part, as I do. Alice, when she's looking for a friend who's about the same size as herself, she actually puts a message in a bottle and she throws it into the river. And this message is, this bottle is taken across the sea by octopus and whales and all sorts of things. And it finds the lighthouse keeper and his son, Francois. And Francois reads her letter and he writes back to her. So they have this kind of quite lovely little backwards and forwards of messages in bottles for a little while until the grandma dies. And then there is a period where Alice doesn't write to Francois because she is deeply, deeply sad. And Francois wonders maybe if he's done something wrong or what might be going on for Alice. And that can happen in friendships, can't it? Even friendships that are not, inter-country. But so he worries that Alice has forgotten him. But then Alice tells Miss Clement about Francois and how much he means to her as her only friend, even though they've never met. And Miss Clement is like, dude, we have to meet. So she organises, they send a message in the bottle to let the lighthouse keeper and his son know that they're coming over. There is like a mosquito flying around my room, and I'm really good at catching mosquitoes with one hand. I'm a mosquito ninja, but I'm not going to do that on Facebook Live because that would be embarrassing. It would be impressive, but it would also be a bit gross. But then they, it's always very random on Fridays, isn't it? And then, so they go and meet up with Francois. And Francois gets a note saying, hello, Francois, it is Alice. Miss Clement and I are coming to visit you. Please put the kettle on. And so he does. And the lighthouse keeper makes lemon muffins. And they have a joyous time together. Look at that gorgeous illustration there. I love Gus Gordon's ability to portray emotion and enjoyment and excitement just in a few facial expressions on animals. It's just the most beautiful story. It's sophisticated, it's elegant, it's all of the things you want in a story about friendship. It's heartwarming. It's a story to be read over and over and over again. It is just a delight. I feel very full when I read this book, and I've probably read it 4 or 5 times now to classes and a few times just by myself. And I just love it. It's one of those stories that really grows on you. It's a very warm story that deserves to be read over and over again, which I hope you will do with it. So I said to you at the start of that I love Gus Gordon, and there's nothing that he's written and illustrated that I've not ever truly adored. It is the same with Jane Godwin. It would be fair to say that Jane Godwin is one of my favorite authors in the country. I adore her writing. She has written an astonishing number of picture books, and a lot of them are illustrated by some of our best illustrators in the country. And she has also, what a lot of people don't know is that she's also written a fair number of middle grade novels. And it was actually her middle grade novels that I discovered before I discovered her picture books. Some of her picture books have made me cry. Her picture books always move me in some way, and her middle grade novels do exactly the same. They are just exquisite. Again, I would really like to, I have actually met Jane briefly, but I would really love one day to sit down and, I don't know what I'd say to her. Thanks for the just exquisite literature you put out into the world for our young people. She's just delightful. I follow her on Instagram and I love everything she puts on social media. Yeah. If we lived in the same state, we would be deeply good friends. We would be going out. Do you drink coffee, Jane Godwin? I assume she'll watch this at some stage. I hope she drinks coffee. That would be a real downer for me if she doesn't drink coffee, because I was going to say we could meet for coffee, but if she doesn't drink coffee, that would be a problem. Does anyone know if Jane Godwin drinks coffee? That will be like a clincher for me. That could be a deal breaker. Anyway, so her middle grade novels, like I said, I adore. And it was through her middle grade novels that I discovered her. She wrote a novel quite some time ago called Minnie and the Super Guys, which at the time was the first middle grade novel I think I'd ever read and understood that middle grade was a real thing. So I call middle grade a stepping stone between sort of junior fiction into young adult territory. It holds the hand of readers from, say, 11 to 12, goes from sort of the ages of 11 to 14, and it goes softly on them, and it takes them more gently into young adult territory with all its sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So I love middle grade novels. They're probably where I'm at as a reader. I find some YA very heavy and very disturbing, whereas middle grade, maybe it's because my life is so chaotic, but I generally know in middle grade that the author will go a fair way and then they'll pull back before it gets too distressing. And there's something I really like about that. We've got some fabulous middle grade authors in the country. I love the writing of Alison Rushby and Alison Tate and Michael Jared Bauer and Tristan Banks. Danielle Bink's latest novel is middle grade, first novel actually. We've got some really, really great middle grade writers. And in terms of overseas, I feel like Kate DiCamillo probably would be classified as middle grade. And there is nothing not to love about Kate DiCamillo, which probably is a nice segue into this book. I feel that When Rain Turns to Snow, Godwin's latest middle grade novel, out in July, it's got that genuine warmth and what is it? It's just got that warmth that a Kate DiCamillo book has. It is exquisite. It is about a girl called Lisa who is 13, and she comes home one day to discover that there is a stranger on her doorstep and he's carrying a young baby. He looks about the same age as Lisa. Heart. Thank you, Alison Rushby. Oh my gosh, I literally could not think of the word heart. Yes, heart. The books have heart. Thank you, Alison Rushby, for giving me the word when I couldn't bring it to front of mind. Her books have got heart, as do Kate DiCamillo books. So Lisa discovers this guy about her age called Reed, and he is on her doorstep and he has a baby, which is alarming. And he just comes out and says he's looking for his birth mother. He was adopted and he is looking for his birth mother. And she's like, you're carrying a baby. And it turns out that the baby is Reed's brother's child, and Reed's brother is in a bit of trouble, as is the mother of the baby. And Reed kind of took off with this baby. He knew the baby was going to be safer with him. And so begins this, at times, quite unusual, like the start of it, you think, really? But as the story goes on, it just all comes together so beautifully, and it does feel incredibly authentic and genuine, and the story could actually be happening. It was a bit like her last novel. Was it As Happy as Here? I think I wrote it down. Yes, As Happy as Here. At the start of As Happy as Here, I was like, wow, this feels a bit unbelievable, but it all comes together beautifully. I felt the same when I read Sue Whiting's middle grade novel Missing earlier this year, and her other one, I want to say Lucky. It wasn't Lucky. Someone will tell me. Alison Rushby will tell me. But Sue Whiting does a bit the same. She puts her characters in quite unusual circumstances so that they have to really fend for themselves. But it all comes together really beautifully. And this is a story which so many think readers from 12 will really, really relate to. I definitely think it's upper middle grade. So I'm saying from 12, there are some themes which I think make it a little bit older. There's reference to alcohol, drinking, and there's reference to, obviously, the Book of Chance. Thank you, Amanda Craig. That was the Sue Whiting book I was, again, trying to bring to mind. So there are some themes in here that I think take it up into that 12-year-old age category, but I'm going to have this in my Year 6 section, which is just for my Year 6 students at school. It's just exquisite. So Reed is really trying to find out about his birth mother, who he thinks is actually Lisa's mum, because as it turns out, Lisa's mum had sent an email donkeys years ago about a child. And Lisa kind of hides Reed and is helping him out with this baby. And the story just gets more and more, you fall deeply into it. So Lisa is also having some issues at home. Her brother, who she adores, her older brother, has been in a bit of trouble with some online stuff at school. And I want to read you a really funny section from page 166 about what the mum says about online safety, and what it starts with Harry talking. Mum, people your age don't get it. That's not the way the world works. Harry sighs like an old man. Kids get destroyed on social media all the time. Didn't some expert come to the school to talk about cyber safety, Mum asks? I remember signing the form. Digital health or something. Yeah, maybe, whatever. And it's just so, I love the lines like that in the book, that just, the mum is kind of talking to her teenage children, and just, she's a delightful mum, but she's just really earnest, and she's just trying to do all of the right things. She's got a new partner. The parents are divorced and she's got a new partner. Their dad has remarried and she is pregnant with twins. It's just got it all going on. The characters are relatable. They're authentic. It's wonderful. It's heartwarming. It's got a lot of stuff about questioning your identity and finding your place in your friendship group, which can be really hard when you're a 13-year-old girl, and finding your place in your own family. And it also is a little bit about families, and family aren't necessarily just the family that you are born into. It can be the family that you find and the family of people that love you. It is a beautiful story. It's got all of the big themes and it is done so beautifully. And then what I've done this week is I've done a bit of poetry. So at school, I've been saying to a lot of the girls, been talking about when we were doing home-based learning, and a lot of us were feeling, particularly the adults, were feeling like we were finding it really hard to read a novel because we were kind of stressed. I read a fair amount of poetry and short stories when we were in home-based learning because my brain was fried, quite frankly, fried. My brain was not working. There is no way I could have even read a junior fiction or a middle grade, let alone a young adult novel or an adult novel. I believe other people found lockdown great. They read lots of things. My brain was fried. But I read poetry, and I rediscovered how wonderful poetry is when you are in between books, or when you just need something that is literary and is going to fill your head with wonder and with words, but you cannot deal with an entire narrative. I love poetry. I haven't always loved poetry, but people like Michelle Taylor, the author of 100 Ways to Fly, have made me fall in love with poetry. And also people like Kat Appel and Sally Murphy, who do verse novels. They've really opened up the world of poetry to me as an adult. I didn't love it so much as a child, I think because we study, as teachers, we study it in schools and we destroy it for kids. And we do that for a reason. I think it's really important to be able to deconstruct poetry. And when I read poetry now as an adult, a lot of what I learned at school does come back to me. But at the time, you do not like it. I really like what Michelle says in her author's note at the end of the book. Just as some people are afraid of flying, some people are a little afraid of poetry. Sometimes the small group of words crafted into a poem can unexpectedly lift you up, take you away somewhere wonderful, and bring you safely home again after you've experienced a whole new view of the world. It's amazing to think that a poem can change a moment, a day, and occasionally even a life. I hope you will find many more ways to fly with poetry. I think that's such a beautiful author's note. And this is a really great collection of poetry for primary school classrooms and for home libraries. I, over the holidays, I'm going to leave this book and this one here that I'll talk about in a tick on my kitchen table. And I don't know if my girls will pick it up, but I certainly love reading poetry over breakfast, but who actually sits at the table for breakfast? Not me, because I don't have any time. I'm eating my breakfast in the car and spilling it all over me. But, I do sit at the table at times, and I love reading something when I'm sitting at the table. And this is the sort of thing I think is good to have on your table as an option for your children to read. It's a beautiful collection of poetry. I love the first poem. Found. I dropped my page in a puddle and it became a poem. And there's just all sorts of wonderful nonsense poetry, some that is more serious. But she talks about the fact that in some of the poems, she talks about the fact that poem can be nonsense and it can just be plain fun. It doesn't have to be serious or sad or meaningful or, you know, doing all of the big things and trying to change the world. Sometimes poetry is just fun. So I love this collection. It's divided up into several sections, which I will tell you about. The Word Zoo, Great Balls of Poetry, The Time of Our Lives, Spooky and Sick, How Many Noses in a Nostril, Coming to Your Senses, and A Pocket Full of Poems. And I will read you the Pocket Full of Poems final poem. I wish for you. I wish for you a pillow full of popcorn, wobbly teeth and bunk beds, wagging tails, pogo sticks, somersaults and magic tricks. I wish for you a coat stitched with spaghetti and chocolate buttons, treasure hunts, disco dances, water bombs and second chances. I wish for you a blanket made of midnight movies and tall stories, hugs and moonlights, big dippers and snow fights. I'll finish there, but it's beautiful. So this is an excellent collection of poetry for primary school libraries and homes. And then finally, This is Fierce, an anthology by Anna Sampson, brave, bold and beautiful poems by women. This is wonderful. It's been out for a number of years now, but I did check before I talked about it this afternoon. It is still available both as a paperback and a hardback. Somebody asked me on Facebook the other day for a recommendation for a book to give to a 15-year-old girl who was having a really, really tough time, but who loved reading. And I suggested poetry for the same reason I talked about earlier, that sometimes when you're going through a really tough time, a narrative is quite tricky to concentrate on. Whereas poetry is something you can dip in and out of. And to me, this is the type of book that every teenage girl needs to be gifted. She is Fierce. What a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful title. It's 150 poems from classics by Bronte up to modern day poets like Kate Tempest, who is my favorite spoken word poet in the world. And I saw her in Brisbane just before lockdown happened. How lucky was I? Anna, the person who has edited this collection, starts by saying in her author's note, it's an exciting time for poetry. Slams and performances are attracting huge audiences. Book sales are booming. Some of today's biggest online superstars are poets. Women are at the forefront of this movement, winning prizes, headlining festivals, topping bestseller lists, and connecting with thousands of readers in digital spaces. It has not always been this so. And she goes on to do quite lengthy introduction about the importance of women poets. And I was going to read you, but I won't because I've been talking forever, the poem by Kate Tempest, who, as I said, is my favorite spoken word poet. You can look her up on YouTube. She is astonishing. Actually, it's my Facebook Live. It's my rules. So if I want to read the poem, I can. You can all go, but I can read the poem because this is my Facebook Live. I'm going to read the poem. It's wonderful. It's called 13. The boys have football and skate ramps. They can ride BMX and play basketball in the courts by the flats until midnight. The girls have shame. One day, when we are grown and we have minds of our own, we will be kind women with nice smiles and families and jobs. And we will sit with the weight of our lives and our pain pushing our bodies down into the bus seats. And we will see 13-year-old girls for what will seem like the first time since we've been them. And they will be sitting in front of us, laughing into their hands at our shoes or our jackets and rolling their eyes at each other. While out the window, in the sunshine, the boys will be cheering each other on and daring each other to jump higher and higher. That is a wonderful piece of poetry. Highly recommend Kate Tempest to you if you don't already know about her. This is an utterly giftable collection of poetry for any young woman or young man in your life, and I feel like it's an essential for primary and maybe not primary. Some of them are, well, I have it in my primary library, but I do have a senior fiction sticker on it, and definitely secondary school libraries. And it's just one of those books that I feel like you need to own. Anyway, I hope you all have a great weekend. Yes, Alison Tate, there is a lot of pink going on today. I don't really know why. My hair is less pink than it was last week. It's faded quite a lot already, disappointingly. So I will have to recondition. Someone asked, actually not someone, about 10 people asked me last week on Instagram how I get my hair so pink, and do I do it myself? Yes, I do it myself mostly. My hairdresser does I never know which way I'm going on my hairdresser does the bits on this side that are the more permanent pink, and they're sort of always quite pink. And then all I do is buy a fudge brand, or actually whatever is on sale in the supermarket, brand of pink hair dye, and I just put it through conditioner, and I do it when I wash my hair, which isn't that often, can I just say. And sometimes it works beautifully, and sometimes it goes really, really, really bright, as in last week, and my children scream. But on the whole, I do love my pink hair. I have nothing more to say. Have an excellent weekend. Hope you were all doing something lovely. I will see you all. No, I won't see you all next week, actually. I'm on holidays now. My children are on holidays. I have tried to do 5 p.m. Oh, that was my phone talking to me. I have tried to do 5 on Fridays in the holidays. It does not work because my children are going mental somewhere in the house, and it all goes really badly, and I get really stressed, and I say ridiculous things online in a live forum. So I'm not doing 5 on Friday in the school holidays. It is not worth it. I will one day say something so random that none of you will ever follow me again. At the moment, I have one 12 and one 13-year-old girl upstairs cooking muffins. I hope that's what they're doing. That's what they said they were doing, although there was a lot of toilet paper that they got out of the toilet as well. I don't know why you need toilet paper to cook muffins. So, it's already hard enough doing 5 on Friday with my children in the house. So I am not doing it in the school holidays. So I will see you after the school holidays. See you all later.